The day fear took the stars. The galaxy was never truly silent. Even in deep space, there was always something moving. Ships traveling between stars, signals flowing like invisible rivers, engines humming softly in the dark. But on that day, the galaxy went quiet. It started at the outer edges. A mining station stopped responding. Then a patrol ship vanished from scanners. No distress call, no explosion, just gone. At first, no one noticed. Space was big. Accidents happened. Then another system went dark, and another. Soon, fear began to spread. Messages traveled faster than ships. Traders warned each other. Military channels filled with broken reports. Old species remembered ancient stories they hoped were only myths. One word appeared again and again in secret messages: the monster. No one knew its real name. No one had ever spoken to it. Survivors from past encounters were rare, and those who lived never described the same thing twice. Some said it was a living ship. Some said it was a creature wearing metal. Some said it was death itself. But all agreed on one thing. When it arrived, entire fleets disappeared. Now it was coming again. At the edge of civilized space floated Karth Void Port, one of the largest trade stations in the sector. Thousands of ships docked there every cycle. Dozens of species lived and worked inside its metal walls. On a normal day, the station was loud and full of life. This day was different. Inside the main control hall, alarms flashed red. Officers stood frozen at their stations. Screens showed star maps filled with warning symbols. A young navigation officer swallowed hard. "It's confirmed," she said softly. "The object exited warp 3 minutes ago." The station commander turned slowly. "Distance?" he asked. "Too close," she replied. The room fell silent. They all knew what that meant. Outside the station, space looked normal at first. Stars burned quietly, no explosions, no enemy fleet. Then something appeared. It was not fast, it did not rush, it simply arrived. A massive black shape slid into view, long, uneven, wrong. It had no clear engines, no glowing lights, no symbols. It blocked the stars behind it, like a shadow that swallowed light. The monster had come. Across Karth Void Port, panic exploded. Merchants abandoned their cargo. Families ran through corridors. Security teams tried to keep order, but their voices shook. "Evacuate! All non-essential personnel, evacuate!" Docking bays filled with desperate ships trying to leave at once. Some crashed, others failed to start. Many would not escape in time. In the lower levels of the station, near the cargo sector, the fear felt heavier. The lights flickered, the metal walls groaned softly as the station adjusted its shields. Aliens pressed themselves against walls. Some cried openly, others stood frozen, unable to move. They all looked at the same thing, the large screen at the end of the corridor. It showed the monster drifting closer. No weapons fire came from it, no message, no warning. That was what made it worse. Near Dock 17, among stacked metal crates and loading machines, a single human sat on a supply box. His name was Elias Ward. He wore a simple work uniform. No rank marks, no heavy armor, just a basic security badge clipped to his chest. Around him, fear ruled everything. A tall insect-like merchant trembled as it tried to crawl behind a crate. 2 reptilian workers whispered prayers in their native language. A security officer leaned against the wall, breathing too fast. Elias watched them quietly. Then he looked up at the screen. The monster's shape filled it now. Dark armor plates slowly shifted, like muscles under skin. Elias let out a short laugh. It was not loud, it was not cruel, but in that moment, it sounded wrong. The insect merchant turned its head sharply. "Human," it hissed. "That thing destroys worlds!" Elias smiled faintly. "Yeah, I heard." The station shook slightly. Not an attack, just the monster adjusting its position. Somewhere above them, a warning siren wailed. The station commander's voice echoed through every corridor. "All personnel, remain calm. Do not provoke the entity." No one felt calm. Dock 17 fell silent. Everyone watched the screen. Everyone held their breath. Everyone felt the same cold thought. This is how it ends. Everyone, except the human. Elias tilted his head, studying the image like a mechanic looking at a broken machine. Then he laughed again, this time louder, and for the first time since the monster arrived, something new entered the galaxy. Not fear, curiosity.
The monster arrives. The black ship did not rush. It moved slowly around Karth Void Port, like a hunter walking around trapped prey. Inside the station, no one spoke loudly anymore. The panic from before had turned into something worse: waiting. In the main control hall, officers stared at their screens. The monster's surface shifted and changed. Dark plates moved like breathing skin. No heat signals, no engine readings, no clear weak points. "It is scanning us," one officer whispered. "How do you know?" another asked. "Because it always does." The commander stood very still. His hands were behind his back, but they were shaking. "Raise shields to full strength," he ordered. "They are already at maximum," someone replied. Silence followed. On the outer hull of the station, cameras zoomed in. The monster ship was now close enough to touch. Then something happened. A section of its black surface opened again. Not like a door, not like a machine, more like flesh pulling apart. From inside, something long and dark began to slide out. Gasps filled the control room. "It is deploying," the navigation officer said softly. The creature emerged slowly. First came a claw, long, curved, sharp like a blade. Then a second limb. Then a massive armored body covered in thick black plates. Red lines glowed between the armor pieces like heat inside cracks. The creature did not float. It stepped. There was no visible platform, no support, yet it walked through open space as if gravity obeyed it. One step, then another. Each movement was heavy and calm. Inside the lower cargo sector, Elias Ward watched the screen with interest. Around him, aliens backed away from the display. A reptilian worker whispered, "It's bigger than before." "How do you know?" another asked. "They grow," the worker replied, "every time." The screen switched to an outside camera. The creature reached the station hull. It placed one claw against the metal surface. The metal bent, not from force, but like it was soft. Inside Dock 17, a loud vibration passed through the floor. The walls trembled. Small dust particles fell from the ceiling. Someone screamed. The security officer near Elias grabbed his weapon, even though he knew it would not matter. "It is entering," a voice announced over the station speakers. In the control room, warning lights flashed red across every panel. "Hull breach detected. Outer cargo ring." That was near Dock 17. The commander closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened them again. "All units fall back. Seal internal doors. Do not engage." But it was too late. On the screen near Elias, the image showed the creature tearing through the outer hull. Metal ripped open like paper. Air rushed out into space. Emergency shields activated instantly, sealing the broken area with a thin energy layer. The creature stepped inside the station. For the first time, it stood within the halls of Karth Void Port. It was taller than any species present, nearly twice the height of a human. Its armor was thick and layered. Its red eyes glowed brighter in the darker corridor. It looked around slowly, not confused, not angry, just calm, like it had done this many times before. Aliens ran. Some fell over each other. Some dropped their belongings. A small child cried until its parent pulled it away. The creature took one step forward. The floor cracked slightly under its weight. Security teams at the end of the corridor raised their weapons. "Do not fire," their captain shouted. But one young guard panicked. He pulled the trigger. Bright plasma bolts shot toward the creature. They hit and disappeared. Not deflected, not absorbed, just gone. The creature turned its head toward the guard. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the creature extended one arm. A dark pulse moved through the air. The guard lifted off the ground, his weapon crushed in his hands, his armor bent inward. He did not even have time to scream. When the pulse faded, he dropped to the floor, still, dead. No one fired again. The corridor went silent except for heavy breathing. The creature continued walking, slow, controlled, certain. Inside Dock 17, Elias stepped away from the crate he had been sitting on. The security officer grabbed his arm. "Are you insane?" the officer whispered. "Did you see what it did?" "Yes," Elias said calmly. "And you're smiling?" Elias glanced toward the corridor entrance. "I've seen worse," he replied. The officer stared at him. "Worse than that?" Elias adjusted his sleeves slightly. "Back home, we call things like that wildlife." The station shook again. The creature was now only 2 corridors away. Screams echoed through the metal halls. In the control room, someone whispered, "There is no fleet coming. No help is coming." The commander knew it was true. This was how it always happened. The monster arrived. Resistance failed. Silence followed. But down in Dock 17, something was different this time. The creature reached the final turn before entering the cargo sector. Its red eyes glowed brighter. It stepped forward, and for the first time, it saw the human standing in the open, not running, not hiding, waiting. Elias looked directly at the massive creature. Then he laughed. The sound echoed through the empty cargo bay, and for the first time since it entered the station, the monster stopped walking.
Why the galaxy was afraid. For many years, the galaxy had known peace. There were still small wars, border fights, and political conflicts between species, but nothing that threatened everyone at once. Trade routes stayed open, space stations stayed busy, civilizations grew stronger. Many believed that technology had made them safe forever. Then, the Devourer appeared. No one knew where it came from. It did not arrive like normal ships. It did not use known travel paths. One day, long-range sensors simply detected something massive drifting between star systems. At first, scientists thought it was a dead moon or a broken planet. But when it moved, slowly changing direction with clear purpose, they understood it was something else. It was a ship. But not a normal ship. It had no clear engines, no lights, no signals. Its surface looked like dark metal, but it also looked alive. Parts of it shifted and folded slowly, like breathing armor. It absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Even the strongest scanners could not fully read it. They named it the Devourer because of what happened next. The first system it entered lost contact within hours. 12 planets, thousands of stations, millions of ships, all silent. When exploration fleets arrived days later, they found nothing but drifting debris. Entire cities had vanished. Shipwreckage looked crushed, twisted, and torn apart by enormous force. No survivors were found. Fear spread quickly. The Galactic Council ordered observation teams to follow the object from a safe distance. They wanted to learn its purpose. They hoped it was moving randomly, but it was not. It was choosing its path. Every system it entered was rich with life or energy. Every time it arrived, destruction followed. No warnings, no communication, no mercy. Finally, the strongest military alliance in the galaxy made a decision. They would stop it. 3 grand war fleets were assembled. Each fleet was made from the most powerful ships ever built. Battleships with planet-breaking weapons, defense carriers with layered shields, drone swarms that could block entire star lanes. Scientists created new energy beams designed to cut through any known material. Thousands of ships gathered in deep space to face the Devourer. Commanders believed victory was certain. Nothing had ever survived that much firepower. Nothing had ever faced such coordination between species. The fleets formed attack formations and waited for the massive object to approach. When the Devourer arrived, it did not slow down. The first fleet opened fire. Brilliant streams of energy crossed the darkness. Explosions lit space like newborn stars. The second fleet joined, launching missiles and drones in endless waves. The third fleet moved behind, ready to strike from every angle. For a moment, it looked like the monster ship had stopped. Then everything went wrong. Survivor recordings later showed confusion spreading through the fleets. Energy beams that struck the Devourer simply vanished into its surface. Missiles disappeared before impact, swallowed by shifting darkness. Shields began to fail without warning. Some ships lost power completely. Then the counterattack began. Parts of the Devourer's surface opened like enormous mouths. From them came shapes, massive creatures made of armored metal and living tissue. They moved faster than any known fighter craft. They struck warships directly, tearing through hulls as if they were thin paper. One battleship was crushed in seconds. Another was split apart by something that wrapped around it like a giant hand. Entire drone swarms vanished without leaving debris. Panic spread. Commanders ordered retreat formations, but communication systems began failing. Navigation controls stopped responding. Gravity fields twisted unpredictably. Ships collided with each other while trying to escape. Within minutes, the battle became chaos. The last clear recording showed a flagship drifting powerless while darkness surrounded it from every direction. The final message was only one sentence: "Nothing works. Run." None of the 3 war fleets returned. No rescue missions found survivors. No damaged ships drifted back to safe space. It was as if the fleets had never existed. After that day, the galaxy changed. Trade routes shifted away from the paths where the Devourer had been seen. Border war stopped immediately whenever sensors detected its movement. Entire planets were evacuated if it came too close. Military forces no longer prepared for battle when it appeared. They prepared to flee. The Galactic Council created one simple rule that every species agreed to follow. If the Devourer appears, you run. No discussions, no negotiations, no attempts to study or communicate. Survival mattered more than pride, knowledge, or territory. Generations grew up hearing stories about the failed fleets. Children learned early that some dangers could not be fought. Scientists stopped trying to understand it. Soldiers stopped dreaming of victory. Even the bravest commanders refused to challenge it. Fear became law. Years passed, and the Devourer continued moving through the galaxy, silent and unstoppable. Wherever it traveled, destruction followed.
Civilizations learned to watch the stars carefully, always ready to abandon everything at a moment's notice. Then, one day, deep space sensors detected it again. This time, it was heading toward a major orbital station, one of the largest population centers in that region. Thousands of ships were docked there. Millions of beings lived and worked inside its rotating structure. Emergency alarms screamed through every corridor. Evacuation orders spread instantly. Transport ships launched in waves. Control officers worked desperately to organize departures. Fear filled every room. Outside, the massive dark shape drifted closer, closer, closer. Then something new happened. A section of its surface began to open. A large circular gap formed, like a wound in its armored body. Inside was only darkness, deep, endless darkness. From that opening, something began to emerge. Long limbs, thick, layered armor, a creature larger than any known species. It moved slowly toward the station hall. Inside the control room, officers froze. Some whispered prayers. Others stared at screens, unable to move. One voice quietly said what everyone believed: "It's over." But not everyone was frozen. Elias walked calmly toward the main airlock. While the galaxy remembered only fear, he was still smiling.
The human difference. Elias stepped out into open space. There was no sound, no wind, no movement except slow drifting particles of metal and ice. The stars stretched endlessly behind the enormous creature clinging to the station hull. Up close, it was even larger than he expected. Its surface was not smooth, it was layered. Plates of dark armor shifted slowly, sliding over each other like living stone. Thin lines of faint light moved beneath the surface like slow rivers of energy. It was not still, it was breathing. The creature's massive limb hovered in front of him. Each section of its armored body moved with careful control, as if every motion required thought. Elias did not raise a weapon. He did not prepare to fight. He simply stood there, floating in the cold silence, facing something that had destroyed entire civilizations. For a long moment, nothing happened. Inside the station, thousands of eyes watched through screens. Some officers forgot to breathe. Some expected the human to be crushed instantly. But the creature did not strike. Instead, its limb moved closer, slowly, carefully, as if approaching something fragile. Elias lifted his gloved hand again, the same way he had before. His movements were steady and simple. No sudden motion, no threat, just contact. The distance between them closed. His hand touched the creature's armor. It felt warm, not the heat of fire, not the cold of metal, something in between, like living skin protected by an endless shell. For 1 second, nothing changed. Then everything changed. A deep vibration moved through the armor. It passed through his glove, through his hand, up his arm, into his chest, into his head. Elias gasped. It was not pain, it was not sound, it was feeling. Images flooded his mind, not pictures he could see clearly, but impressions, motion, memory, sensation without language. He saw endless darkness between stars. He felt hunger, not for food, but for energy, for movement, for something to fill a vast emptiness. He felt time passing in silence for longer than human history, longer than civilizations, longer than memory itself. He felt searching, always moving, always alone. Elias struggled to stay focused. The emotions were enormous, heavy, ancient, too large for a human mind to hold easily. But humans were good at adapting. They always had been. He steadied his breathing. On Earth, people learned to swim in violent oceans. They learned to walk through storms. They learned to survive fear by facing it again and again until it no longer controlled them. So Elias did the same. He did not push the feeling away. He let it come. He let himself understand. The creature was not attacking because it wanted destruction. It was consuming because it did not know anything else. It moved toward energy because that was how it survived. It approached life because life created the strongest signals in the silent universe. It did not understand the difference between feeding and killing. To it, both were the same. Elias whispered softly, even though no sound could travel through space. "You're not evil," he said gently. "You're just alone." The vibration changed. It became slower, softer. The creature's limb adjusted slightly, holding his hand more carefully, as if testing how much pressure a human body could survive. Inside the station, scientists stared at their instruments in disbelief. Energy readings were stabilizing. Hull damage had stopped spreading. The creature was no longer tearing into the station. It was waiting. Elias closed his eyes. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, not the fastest, not the most advanced, but they had something unusual. They could endure discomfort longer than most species. They could stay in frightening situations without collapsing. They could remain curious even when facing danger. And, most importantly, they could feel empathy for things completely different from themselves. Elias focused on that feeling. He thought about Earth, about crowded cities and quiet forests, about storms that destroyed homes and people rebuilding them anyway, about wars and peace that followed, about loneliness and the simple human act of reaching out to someone else. He did not send words, he sent emotion, understanding, recognition, companionship. The creature responded immediately. The vibration grew stronger, not overwhelming, but deeper, more complex, like a massive mind slowly opening. It shared more, not just hunger, not just movement, memory. Elias sensed stars being born and dying, entire systems collapsing into darkness, ages passing with nothing but drifting silence, endless travel without purpose beyond survival. No voices, no communication, no one who ever reached back, until now. Elias felt his chest tighten. For the first time, the great Devourer had found something that did not run away and did not attack, something that simply stayed, something that touched back. The creature slowly shifted its enormous body. Its claws loosened their grip on the station. Pieces of torn metal drifted freely into space. It was releasing the structure. Inside the control room, officers stared in disbelief. Damage alerts were shutting down, hull pressure stabilizing, the threat level dropping. No one spoke. They could not understand what they were seeing. Outside, Elias remained connected to the creature. His oxygen timer continued counting down, but he did not move yet. He wanted the creature to understand one more thing. Humans did not survive their dangerous world because they were fearless. They survived because they faced fear together. He focused on that idea, not alone, together. The creature became completely still. Then, very slowly, its massive limb withdrew from the station. It did not break contact suddenly. It pulled away gently, like someone carefully letting go of a fragile object. Elias's hand drifted free. The creature moved backward into open space. For the first time since its arrival, it was retreating, not fleeing, just leaving. Before turning away completely, its surface shifted one last time. A final soft vibration passed between them. A feeling, not hunger,
not loneliness, something new, acknowledgement. Elias watched as the enormous being drifted back toward the dark shape of the larger vessel waiting beyond the stars. The Devourer had not fed, it had not destroyed, it had learned. Inside the station, silence filled every room. Then someone whispered, "The human changed it." Elias slowly turned and guided himself back toward the open airlock. His oxygen was low, his body was shaking, but he was smiling again, because this was the human difference. Where others saw only a monster, humans asked a question, and sometimes they listened long enough to hear the answer.
When fear changed sides. The station did not feel safe anymore. Even though the creature in the corridor was dead, even though the hull was stable, even though emergency systems were under control, something had changed. Everyone could feel it. The great dark vessel outside had not attacked yet. It had not fired weapons. It had not sent more creatures. But it had moved. And movement meant attention. Attention meant awareness. And awareness meant danger. Inside the main command center, officers worked quickly but quietly. Voices stayed low. No one wanted to speak too loudly, as if sound alone might provoke the massive presence beyond the station walls. Sensor data streamed across every screen, energy levels rising, surface patterns shifting, gravitational waves forming around the vessel. It was not random motion, it was observation. The Devourer was watching them. The commander stood still at the center of the room, staring at the live external feed. His hands were behind his back, but they were not steady. For the first time in his long career, he did not know what the correct decision was. Running had always been simple. Now running felt uncertain, because something new had entered the equation: human behavior. Behind him, the door opened softly. Elias walked in. His combat suit showed scratches and stress marks from pressure changes. His helmet was removed now, tucked under his arm. His face looked tired but calm. Several officers turned to look at him immediately. No one spoke. They did not know how to speak to someone who had just changed galactic history. The commander slowly turned. "The vessel has not attacked," he said. Elias nodded. "Yes." "It has not retreated either." Another nod. "Yes." The commander studied him carefully. "What is it waiting for?" Elias looked at the external screen. The massive dark structure filled half the visible stars. Its surface moved slowly like deep ocean currents. "It's thinking," he said. Several officers exchanged uneasy looks. Thinking was worse than attacking. Attacking was predictable. Thinking meant decision. Thinking meant learning. The commander stepped closer to the screen. "It saw one of its own destroyed," he said quietly. "It must respond. That is what all intelligent species do." Elias tilted his head slightly. "Not always," he replied. The commander frowned. Elias continued. "Sometimes intelligence pauses. Sometimes it observes. Sometimes it changes behavior based on new information." One officer spoke from a nearby console. "Energy spikes increasing along its outer layers, but not weapon charging patterns. Unknown configuration." The room grew even quieter. The Devourer was not preparing to destroy them. It was adjusting, adapting, learning. Elias folded his arms and watched the data streams carefully. On Earth, predators learned from failed hunts. Storm survivors rebuilt stronger shelters. Humans studied every danger that hurt them and then returned better prepared. Why would a cosmic species behave differently? The commander spoke again. "If it adapts to resist your gravity device, then what?"
Elias did not answer immediately, because the commander was right. Fear had changed sides, but fear also motivated growth. If the Devourer learned how it lost, it might return stronger, much stronger. A young technician suddenly gasped, "Movement detected!" All eyes turned to the main display. The vessel's surface was opening, not like before, not a single gap, multiple openings, large ones, small ones, dozens across its massive body. The commander's voice tightened. "Prepare defense." "Wait," Elias said calmly. Everyone froze. The openings continued to expand slowly. Darkness inside them shifted, but nothing emerged. Minutes passed. Nothing attacked. Nothing advanced. The station remained untouched. Then new data appeared on the sensor grid. Energy emissions spreading outward, wide range, low intensity, not directed at the station, directed everywhere. Scanning pulses. The Devourer was mapping its surroundings, carefully, thoroughly, studying everything. Distance, mass, structure, movement. It was learning the environment that had produced resistance, learning the place where fear had turned against it. Inside the room, tension rose again. Officers gripped control panels tightly, because understanding led to strategy. Strategy led to response, and response could mean war. The commander spoke slowly. "It is preparing for future conflict." Elias watched the scanning waves spread across space. "No," he said quietly. "It is trying to understand what hurt it." That was different, very different. The scanning continued for several long minutes. Then it stopped. All motion ceased. Every opening on the vessel's surface sealed again. The massive structure became still, completely still. Even energy readings dropped to minimal levels. The station crew stared in confusion. No attack, no retreat, no movement, just silence. Then the vessel began to move away, slowly, gradually increasing distance from the station. Not fleeing, not rushing, simply leaving. A long breath escaped from dozens of people at once. Some sat down heavily in their chairs. Others leaned against walls. A few closed their eyes in relief. The commander remained standing, watching, waiting. He did not trust it yet. But the distance kept growing. More stars appeared between the station and the dark shape. Finally, after many long minutes, the vessel turned fully and drifted into deep space, gone. No alarms sounded, no systems failed, no destruction followed. It had left. The command room stayed silent even after it disappeared from sensors. No one wanted to speak first. No one wanted to break the moment. Finally, the commander turned slowly toward Elias. "It retreated," he said. Elias nodded. "Yes." The commander's voice was quiet, because it was afraid. Elias thought carefully before answering. "Because it learned something new," he corrected gently. The difference mattered. Fear alone caused panic. Learning caused change. Across the station, messages spread rapidly. The Devourer had withdrawn, not after destroying everything, after encountering resistance, after facing something that did not run. People began speaking in hushed voices. Hope mixed with uncertainty. If one human could stop one creature, if one station could survive, then maybe the galaxy was not helpless after all. But hope was dangerous, because hope encouraged action, and action might provoke a species that now understood pain, loss, and resistance. The commander looked at the stars where the vessel had vanished. "The balance has changed," he said. Elias stood beside him. "Yes. Before, we feared them completely. Yes. And now," Elias watched the empty space quietly. "Now,
Both sides know the other can fight back. The commander nodded slowly. Mutual fear, mutual awareness, mutual caution. That was not peace, but it was no longer helplessness. Elias placed a hand lightly on the console. Fear had changed sides, but something else had changed too. For the first time, the galaxy had been seen more than prey, and far away in the silent dark, the Devourer now knew something new existed in the universe. Something fragile, something small, something dangerous, something that did not run. Humans.
The galaxy learns. The station crew stood in complete silence. Outside the wide observation windows, the enormous dark shape of the Devourer's vessel was growing smaller. Slowly, steadily, it drifted away from the station and into deep space. No weapons fired, no creatures emerged, no destruction followed. It was leaving. For the first time in recorded history, the Devourer was retreating. Many officers did not believe what they were seeing. Some checked sensor readings again and again. Others compared visual data with long-range scans, searching for mistakes. There were none. The readings were clear. Distance increasing, threat decreasing, departure confirmed. Inside the damaged corridor, Elias reached down and switched off the gravity disruptor. The small device released a soft pulse as the intense field faded completely. The crushed creature on the floor remained still, its massive armored body broken beyond recovery. He studied it for a moment. This being had once inspired terror across entire star systems. Civilizations had abandoned planets to escape creatures like this. War fleets had vanished trying to stop them. Now one lay motionless at his feet. Elias tapped the side of his helmet communicator. His voice was calm, casual. "Problem solved," he said. "You're welcome." His message echoed through command channels across the station. In the control room, the commander stared at the main display, barely able to process the words. His mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. Finally, he spoke. That was the galaxy's greatest threat." His voice sounded distant, like someone waking from a long dream. Elias stepped over a fractured piece of black armor and began walking back toward the airlock. He shrugged slightly. "You should visit Earth sometime," he replied. No one laughed. They did not understand if he was serious or joking or both. But one thing was certain: everything had changed. In the hours that followed, repair crews moved carefully through the station. Structural damage was sealed, air systems stabilized, injured personnel received treatment, emergency lights returned to normal brightness. Life slowly returned to routine, but people were not the same. Every corridor conversation returned to the same topic: the human, the creature, the retreat. No one could stop talking about it. Security teams reviewed recordings again and again. Scientists replayed energy data from the gravity disruptor. Military analysts studied the Devourer vessel's movement patterns during retreat. They all reached the same conclusion: the Devourer had not been forced away by overwhelming power. It had withdrawn after encountering unexpected resistance. It had learned risk and fear. News spread quickly beyond the station, faster than trade signals, faster than diplomatic transmissions, even faster than military priority alerts. Across star systems, across inhabited worlds, across thousands of species, the message traveled. The Devourer had been stopped, not slowed, not avoided, stopped by one human. No massive fleet, no advanced superweapon, no coordinated galactic defense, just one individual from a death world, using a mining device and refusing to run. At first, many civilizations rejected the report. Impossible, unrealistic, surely misinformation. But data records followed, visual evidence, sensor logs, verified transmissions from multiple independent sources. The truth became undeniable. For generations, the galaxy believed survival depended on escape. Now, survival had a new possibility: resistance. On distant worlds, leaders gathered emergency councils. Military strategists began studying human technology. Scientists requested cultural data about Earth. Historians re-examined every past encounter with the Devourer, searching for missed opportunities, patterns, weaknesses. Fear had not vanished, but it had changed shape. Before, fear meant helplessness. Now, fear mixed with curiosity. If one human could do this, what could many humans do? Days later, a new directive spread through official galactic communication networks. It replaced the oldest survival law ever created. For centuries, the rule had been simple: if the monster appears, you run. Now that rule was gone. In its place, a new instruction appeared across military databases, civilian emergency systems, and planetary defense protocols. If the monster appears, call a human. On the station where everything had happened, the commander stood quietly in the observation chamber, watching empty space. Elias joined him, holding a small metal cup of heated ration drink. He leaned casually against the viewing rail. Neither spoke for a long moment. Finally, the commander said softly, "My people spent generations believing fear was our greatest protection." Elias sipped his drink. "Fear keeps you alive," he said. The commander nodded, "But courage changes what survival means." Elias smiled slightly. "Yes." The commander turned to look at him. "Does your species always respond to danger this way?" Elias thought for a moment. Then he answered honestly. "Not always," he said, "but often enough." Far beyond the station, far beyond mapped trade routes, deep within the silent dark between stars, the massive Devourer vessel drifted slowly. Its surface remained closed and still, but inside, activity had changed. Energy moved differently. Patterns shifted. Memory stored new information. Encounter, resistance, encounter, damage, encounter, unknown species, human. New classification added. Not prey, not harmless, danger. Observation required, caution necessary. Avoid direct contact until further understanding achieved. For the first time since it began crossing the galaxy, the Devourer did not see itself as the greatest force in existence. It had discovered something unexpected, something unpredictable, something small, fragile, but extremely dangerous. Back on the station, Elias prepared to leave with the next transport vessel. Before boarding, the commander approached him one last time. "The galaxy will remember what you did." Elias adjusted the strap of his equipment bag. "Good," he replied. "Maybe they'll stop panicking so much." The commander hesitated. Then he asked quietly, "Is Earth truly that dangerous?" Elias paused at the boarding ramp. He looked back with an easy smile. "Let's just say," he said gently, "the Devourer picked the wrong species to scare." He entered the ship. Moments later, the transport departed. Across the galaxy, civilization slowly adjusted to a new understanding. The universe was still dangerous. The Devourer still existed. Fear still mattered. But now everyone knew something else. The galaxy was not the most dangerous place in existence, because somewhere, on a small blue planet, storms raged, oceans roared, predators hunted, and a species evolved that refused to run from anything. And in the endless dark between stars, even the Devourer remembered that world. Earth. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Humans Are Different for more epic HFY sci-fi stories where humanity proves why the galaxy should be careful what it hunts. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next encounter, because out there in the dark, something is always watching, and sometimes it learns the hard way.